You don't deserve to be here. On graduation day, they humiliated me in front of everyone, assuming I would bow my head and shrink back. Years of silent effort and suppressed frustration were taken for granted. Maya was lifted on a pedestal while I remained a shadow. Now, I had cut off all support, exposing their bills, mortgage, and daily expenses in full view. They flipped through the documents I had organized, terrified and furious, yet powerless to respond. Once towering over me, my parents now stood in disarray, full of regret, while I stood at the other end, free and victorious. That day, my father's voice sliced through the laughter like a knife. I held my champagne glass, cold and solid in my hands. The music stopped and the room froze. My mother stood nearby, gripping the cake knife, her expression rigid, ready to cut into the awkward moment at any second. I glanced at Maya in the corner, nervously biting her lip, eyes flickering around. She had always been their golden child, and me? I stood in the light like a projected shadow. Look at your grades, Naomi. My father stepped closer, voice rising enough to silence the entire living room. You can't even match your sister, Maya. She's the one who deserves to be proud of our family. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles fizzing at my lips. I slowly lifted my head, meeting his gaze. Fine. Then she can pay your bills too. The room felt electrified. Maya choked on her drink, eyes wide, guests holding their breath. My mother's mouth opened slightly, her face drained of color, while my father's fists clenched, eyes flashing with anger. You, my mother stammered, voice shaking. How dare you say that? I said it. I set down my glass and turned to the door. The night air hit me cold and real. Aaron waited by the car, his eyes concerned. Are you okay? No, I said clearly, but I will be. We never understood you, my father shouted over the phone, fingers white around the receiver. You treated us like an ATM. You think leaving us will make you free. I leaned against the sofa, the folder I had just printed in my hands. It contained all the bills I had paid for them over the years, bank transfers, rent records, every page heavy with proof of how I had been ignored and used. You always gave Maya praise and gave me the bills, I said calmly, as if recounting someone else's story. A pause on the other end, then my father barked, Are you insane? You can't do this. I've been insane for years, you just never noticed, I replied softly, tapping my fingers against the table, each tap echoing the weight of their indifference. Aaron gently held my hand, a silent pillar of support. Years earlier, during college applications, I was the one staying in the library until 2 a.m., cramming papers and memorizing references. Maya bounced around with her scholarship letter, telling Mom excitedly, Look, I got another A+. Mom beamed like spring sunlight. And me? Even when I had perfect scores, my transcripts were just another sheet on the corner of their table. I had begged for recognition, even a second of praise. That constant neglect from childhood was like ice water on my bones, piercing and sobering. I laughed quietly to myself in the library. I'll make sure they see me. I am stronger than they think. For the first time, I realized the power for revenge had already been building inside me, waiting for the right moment. After graduation, I received a full scholarship to study abroad, worked 2 jobs, and carried nearly all their living expenses. Yet at every gathering, they belittled me openly, taking my efforts for granted while lifting Maya to the sky. Every bill, every transfer, I memorized like sparks ready to ignite. 3 years later, I severed everything. I canceled all automatic payments and closed every linked account under my name. When Maya realized Mom's credit card wasn't working, she panicked and texted, Mom's card isn't working. Did something happen? I didn't reply. Aaron held my hand, smiling. They'll never understand. I watched the account balances vanish like a collapsing dam, calm and clear-headed. Years of accumulated resentment transformed into the weight of freedom. A few days later, I printed and organized every receipt, placing them in a folder with a note. Here's what your golden child never gave you. No signature, just silence, letting them feel the presence they had ignored for so long. 3 days later, they appeared at my door. No warning, no shame, just anger. I opened it slowly, Aaron standing quietly behind me. "We want to talk," Mom's voice trembled, eyes glossy. "Talk about what?" "Humiliating me like on graduation day." I answered flatly. My father tried to speak, voice low and tense. "Do you really think punishing us makes you a hero?" "No, Dad. This makes me free." I looked them straight in the eyes. Aaron's hand rested gently on my shoulder, his presence a silent strength. I opened the folder and laid out my work page by page. "You've enjoyed Maya's spotlight while I carried the household. Every rent payment, every bill, every comfortable life you've had, it was my labor." Mom couldn't speak, tears rolling down her cheeks. Dad clenched his fists, jaw tight. "What do you want, Naomi? Money?" "An apology," he asked. "I want you to learn to live without me," I said calmly, handing them the folder. Silence hung as they accepted the truth they had ignored for years. In that moment, I felt unprecedented liberation. In the following days, Maya called, sobbing, "I had no idea it was all you." I stayed silent. Years of misunderstanding and sibling rivalry finally had a chance to heal. I told her, "It's not your fault. You just never saw." We met at a small cafe on the east side. No parents, no cameras, just two sisters shaped by complex emotions. Maya handed me a notebook, listing every dollar she wanted to repay. "Even if it takes 10 years, she said. I closed the notebook gently. "It's not about the money anymore. Just that you see me, that's enough." 6 months later, I threw a party that was truly mine. No forced smiles, no obligatory manners, just a celebration of myself. Friends laughed, candles flickered, music flowed softly. Maya came, bringing flowers and a card that simply read, "You changed me." I nodded, smiling, knowing this was genuine reconciliation. My parents did not come, but sent a handwritten letter, honest and reflective, acknowledging that my cutting the cord had forced them to see themselves. They didn't beg to return. They simply wrote, "Thank you for making us finally face the truth." I stood on the balcony, Aaron's arm around me, city lights flickering below. The wind whispered gently. I inhaled deeply, feeling the pain of years transformed into fertile soil from which I had grown. The golden child label no longer mattered. I was no longer defined by them. I was forged in fire, my light not given, but earned.